Hi everyone, good afternoon. So I'm going to talk about food photography. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Assad Dadan. I'm a professional food and product photographer and beverage photographer. I started as a self-taught photographer around in 2014. I used to cook my own stuff. I used to take pictures of what my mom used to cook and all. I'm sure a lot of people here also do the same thing, right? Back then in 2014, there was nothing called as food photography. When people used to ask me as to say I'm a food photographer, people like, सिर्फ फूड का खींचते हो अच्छा पोर्ट्रेट शादी नहीं खींचते हो लाइक नो द रीजन फॉर दैट इज दैट I know there are a lot of people who are good and they excel at doing a wide variety of things, but I am not great at clicking pictures of people. I am great at understanding food. I am great at understanding the food culture, where XYZ dish comes from, how the chef perceives it, how I perceive it, or how the stylist perceives it. What, according to you guys, is the importance of food photography? Do you think it is important, or how does it work in 2022 right now? I'll tell you a couple of things. See, I have stopped taking pictures in natural light, to be very honest, because my work demands me to take a lot of things over a span of day. I have to start at 10 o'clock or end at 9 o'clock. I can't be dealing with a natural light because it keeps on changing from east to west, left to right, whatever. But I understand when I also started taking food pictures at home, I had to rely on where the sunlight was coming in my house. It is as basic as knowing कि आपका घर कौन सी तरफ facing है. Is it your bedroom that gets the light, or is it the living room that gets the light? Does it get the best light at 11:30 in the morning, or does it get it at 8 o'clock in the morning? I literally used to prep my thing, what I have to shoot, at 12 o'clock at night, keep it in the refrigerator, put an alarm कि 8 बजे मेरे घर पे living room में वो light आती है, So I have to maneuver around it, right? The second thing regarding photography for home chefs is how to make it look professional. I'm sure you guys are trying to sell something over here, but also remember, you're not competing with the chefs, or you're not competing with restaurants. You have to be true to yourself, right? Somebody is selling a Konkani dish as opposed to somebody selling a cookie or a cake. What is authentic? Like मेरे घर पे वो मुसल्ला है, what my mother has, what my nani has, stone का grinder है ना, वो मुझे किसी और के घर पे देखने नहीं मिलता है. Now, I always think of it as an asset that's very individual to me. People can only see it in my photograph. As a home chef, I think people should start looking into what their roots are. I always crave for these thalis which my home doesn't have. These thalis which have a lot of etching on them, जो पहले ज़माने में गिफ्ट में देते थे, पीछे नाम लिख के देते थे शादी में. Those are very specific to one culture. So I think home chefs should focus on aspects like these that bring out an individuality in their photo. In terms of photography per se, you can obviously take a good picture in natural light. That will give you the best result. But also some part of it is also related to the editing of the picture. Trust me, editing can take your picture from here to here. I use an iPhone 8 for that matter. I don't have any new iPhone. I just have one single camera on that. But I understand that people who are not owning a camera may be looking forward to these kind of things, right? Particularly portrait mode helps because it gives you the depth of field. Your regular camera जो पहले से हुआ करता था, which is almost 28 mm lens, that is great for taking top shots. Portrait really works if you're trying to take a picture which is at 45 degrees, is what we call the diner's perspective. And if you see, most of the restaurant pictures are captured at this level. So if you have a camera or a smartphone that has portrait, please start using it in that perspective. A lot of people make this mistake of ignoring the tripod. I'll tell you what are the benefits with a tripod. I have a basic tripod. It's not that expensive. Now what this little basic gear will let you do is put your phone on it and then you're hands-free at that point. With the tripod, you eliminate all of those errors of having a picture having any distortion, is what I mean. When you're putting it on a tripod, what is happening is once you've set your frame, the only thing you'll be changing is the styling part of your image. And also what will happen is once you're done shooting, once you're taken say around 50 pictures, and then you scroll through it, what you'll find is because the camera was kept at the same place with the help of the tripod, it's easier to fine tune and come to that one picture. So always try to narrow down on say 2-3 photographs and then try to select one out of it. Are any of you using any specialized app to do all of these photos and all? Have you guys heard about RAW files? With RAW, once you start using a RAW format, you'll notice that you can change a lot of things, also like a temperature of the image, the tint of it. You can increase the shadow, you can increase the detailing. A lot of aspects of the picture open up in terms of RAW. So don't ignore editing in that case. So if you're using any of these apps, I'll do a quick demo over here because we have good light over here. So what I'm going to do is, couple of things to remember is when you're trying to take pictures of food photography, your light always has to come from top. I'm going to take a vertical picture. So where's the light coming from? It's coming from here, right? This way, if I take the picture, it's going to be wrong. So what I'm going to do is take a picture from here. But if you come see over here, it's really wide that I can see this, all of these things I can see. So what I'm going to do is come lower this thing. Can you see the difference what's happening now? You're getting nice crisp shadow over here. Now, usually in a picture, I do want a shadow. A lot of people think that shadows are not good for the image, but the shadow will tell you where the light is coming from. It's looking really harsh. What it means is it's a really harsh source of light, which is like a sunlight. Or it could also be like a flashlight, or it could be like a halogen. When the shadow is very softer, it looks like light is basically diffused through something. So I'm going to adjust this a little. On your phone, you usually get this crosshair over here, which tells you कि उसका level सीधा है या नहीं सीधा है, right? Always try to make sure that it's straight. Now imagine this is your canvas over here. Now instead of keeping this straight, which would be very boring, I would try to keep it slightly crossed, angle like this, right? So either I catch more of the shadow to just make it more interesting. If you have cooked something, it's not necessary कि सब कुछ दिखाने की ज़रूरत है उसको एक time पे. Always make sure that you use a smaller plate, because on a smaller plate your food will always look bigger. Imagine that if you cook tandoori chicken, पूरा chicken को दिखाने के लिए you can't use a thal. If you use a smaller plate, the chicken will automatically look bigger in the thal. It will look more impressive that way. Now I could have put the fourth piece also over here, but then all of these play that's happening with the shadows of the light over here, that would have gone away, right? So that's why sometimes just take a step back and think you fourth चीज की ज़रूरत है या नहीं. Also you can do the same thing if you have your portrait mode. The only difference what will happen is instead of going so low with your portrait mode, you might be shooting somewhere at a height like this. Always if you think that photo में कुछ extra आ रहा है, let it be, because it's easier to crop rather than uncropping it later. If you're taking a picture that's too tight, you can't be going wider. But if you're taking a picture wider, you can be cropping it later, right? So what you can also do is use something like a leaf like over here. Now if you see here, the leaf will also cast its own shadow over here. Now you can add these kind of effect to show that the light is passing through something. You can either add it at the corner of the image, you can either add it at the top of the image. Try to use something that's narrow, try to use something that's small, because you can add all of these. Let's get back. I'll start editing this image. So what I'm going to do is just connect my phone so that all of you can see what's happening. Yeah, now you can see it on the TV. That's the photo that we took, right? So I'm going to start editing the picture. The first thing that I need to correct is, now I know because I shot it on tripod, मेरा level बहुत सही था उसका. So I don't need to do any kind of skewing to the thing. So what I'll do first is change it into a crop. Now when you're cropping, I have a habit of knowing कि मैं इसको कहाँ पे post करने वाला हूँ. If I'm going to post it to Instagram, I know it's going to be a 4:5 ratio. If you're a person who always has the aesthetic kind of page जो square pictures डालता है, तो 1:1 आपको crop करना है. So I'm going to crop it into a 4:5. So this is going to be my crop. The only thing that is going to happen is वो tripod का legs दिख रहा है वहाँ पे. Now if you use a software like Snapseed, you can actually erase these kind of small things over there. Now as you can see in the top right, वो leaves का effect यहाँ पे दिख रहा है. I think the exposure is fine in terms of brightness, how bright this image is, it's fine. I think it needs little more color, it needs little more warmth is what I feel. So first thing I'm going to do is, your shadows, I can play around with the shadows. I'm going to darken the shadows over here by taking this into negative. I'm going to also add a little bit of contrast to the picture. Now black point is something is basically where your darkest part of the image, how dark do you want it to go, right? I'm not going to touch that. Saturation is something that I'm going to touch. So you can see I can go really pale like this, or I can go slightly. Now always notice the number that comes up over here. See, this is showing 28 over here. So don't take it too high that कि बहुत obvious होएगा कि इसके ऊपर editing किया हुआ है, right? That's not a good sign. Always try to keep it subtle. 10-20% is always great. What I'm going to do is keep it to 20%. What I'm going to change is, my iPhone, I notice, always has this tendency of making the picture look little bluish. So I'm going to make it little warm. So the more I go on right, it becomes more warm. The more I go on left, it becomes a little more blue. So I'm going to add little warmth to it. Tint is something that lets you take your picture from green to magenta. So I'm not going to touch that because picture I think looks okay to me. Now these are something very subjective. Some people really like to add a lot of sharpness to your picture to make it pop, but because we clicked this picture in enough sunlight, so I don't need to do all of these things. The worst thing that can happen to you is after taking the picture, you zoom in and see कि blurred है, because you always use handheld over there. Vignetting is something that you can do actually if you want to add little vignetting on the corners. See the corners? So what I'm going to do is add 10% of vignetting and say done. So yeah, that's how basically I have taken that picture, but you may have a different aesthetic in terms of not wanting to keep it in center. You may want to keep it on the right if you want to add a text on the corner also, right? So depending upon what your usage is going to be, depending upon where you're going to post this, you might want to make changes to all of these things. Of course, working with sunlight is very difficult because it always keeps on changing. So you need to keep that in mind. I think with that, I would like to quickly take question answers because I think we have...
Best app for a phone.
I have this picture open on Snapseed. Now Snapseed has a lot of by default filters or kind of templates. I think most of these settings work great for if it's a face or something. For food, it's really difficult to judge कि कौन सा इसमें से सही होगा. Some pictures might make some of the things really pop, some of the things might make it really saturated. Snapseed, if you go, there are a lot of tools. You can see it on the screen. There is right from everything from tuning the image in terms of what we did right now, brightness, saturation, all of these things. There is something called as curves, which is really brilliant. That's there in Photoshop and all of these kind of softwares where you can control each of the channel. That is the red channel, that is your green channel, that is your blue channel. If you want to go really deeper, you can start exploring that. Of course, you can crop your picture. There is something called as perspective. This, अगर आपने phone ऐसे लिया था और थोड़ा सा picture टेढ़ा हो गया था, you can fix all of those kind of things. There are brushes like healing and this one that lets you remove unwanted objects or dirt or spill from the picture. So if you're not comfortable using something as detailed as this, stick to your basic default app that lets you do what I did with my image over here. But if you want to explore a little bit more of editing, I'm sure you can use an app like this or Camera Plus or Canva in that case.
As a home chef, where you want the attention to come on the food and for them to also order. You know, there are two schools of photography I've seen. One is where the food and a fair bit of styling elements to tell the story or whatever, and some where the focus is on the food. Do you have a point of view on what works better for home chefs? Because they also need to make sales, right?
Like in my picture that I took, right? This one. I framed it such that कि मुझे इसमें कोई text नहीं डालना था. Price to put a MRP or any kind of information along with this image. I always thought that I'll post this and I'll write some stupid caption down. But if you are a home chef, if you want to sell this thing and you want to highlight something, always have the product in one corner or space around it so that you can try to put text over there or you can try to put doodling or arrows over there and try to add a caption over there. The image is not going to what you're going to click on the phone. It's already in your head. You already know what your picture is going to be. You're just trying to manifest कि okay मैं इसको जो दिमाग में उसको वैसे बनाना है मुझे अभी ऐसे. It's okay I think for even for home chefs to not show the exact quantity. People may say कि वो अपने फोटो में तो 4 दिखा दिया यहाँ पे 3 ही दिया हुआ है. It could be in terms of grammage also. You're trying to sell in terms of gram. Always try to put that asterisk and say that okay this is images for representational purpose only or something like that.
A lot of home chefs do Indian food, and a lot of it could be say brown curries or yellow dals or white stews, which sometimes looks very unappealing. So any tips on how to make that look good?
Now the thing with curries is like it's very difficult to make curries make it look really delicious. When we're trying to shoot food in restaurant, these kind of curries and all, we always tell them that pura curry kabhi nahi dalna. If you're using a bowl, if you have made half a kg of your curry with the chicken or meat or whatever, plan for your shoot to only have one portion of it because you use a smaller dish and then you make the food look bigger in that case, right? If you're using a chicken ka tangdi, use a slightly smaller plate and not like a really big thal because then the food becomes really small and it looks like okay, ये बहुत कम serve कर रहा है मुझे. So that is kind of a perception that you need to change. Actually curry नहीं डालना, उसके नीचे आटा डालना. So if you use a bowl, now you want to show paneer tikka or chicken tikka, drumstick बोलो या जो भी बोलो, everything kind of sinks down. Now when you put a normal atta like a roti ka atta or any kind of atta, you fill it up to like 50% and then you only put 2 ladles of your curry and then you stick your paneer or whatever. It won't go down because नीचे जाने के लिए कुछ है नहीं उसके पास. Then you have all the time in the world to kind of put oil on that. Maybe you want to make it more brown, थोड़ा सा और कुछ करना है उसके ऊपर. Try to also cut down the naan into a smaller. If you can fold the naan into a smaller portion and try to make your curry look bigger than the naan, right? That will also help. Don't keep it very obscure जहाँ पे एक चीज़ बहुत बड़ी दिख रही है, एक चीज़ बहुत छोटी दिख रही है. That's what I believe in. That what makes your picture look good.
How do we focus and emphasize on the textures of the food?
The thing with camera phones and smartphone cameras is by default most of the things are in focus if you use your default camera, right? With cake, I think top really works because it's a shortcut kind of cheat code kind for people who don't want to do a lot of things because if the cake में ऊपर topping ज़्यादा है तो why not show that? Also think about pictures. सिर्फ एक picture नहीं हो सकता. Picture can also be a picture in picture where you can show 70-30, 50-50 where you can take 2 pictures in your software, show a really tight cut portion of how moist your cake is or what is the cranberry is there inside, a chocolate chip is there inside or something is oozing from inside. So what in that case I would ideally do is take a bigger picture, let's say 30% of it or 40% of it I would give to the other picture also that showcases the texture of the food. With your default camera, most of the things in the picture are going to be in focus. So if you're trying to hide a lot of flaws in your image or in your food, I think that way portrait is good. When I say flaws, it does not mean actual flaw, but sometimes some of the food can't be looking great on camera.
When should we give priority to taking picture from a particular angle rather than on top?
See, I believe that it's not even ki question mein shoot kab karne wala, but to the naked eye, if it looks great from top, right, I would go with top. But if to my naked eye, I think that 3/4 angle is making food look better, I would go with the 3/4 angle is what I feel. It's always better to have a choice than rather thinking that, oh, I should have clicked the other one here. You know, I don't know how it would have looked. So it's always better that you click both the options and then sit down after half an hour when you're done wrapping up, cleaning up everything. Sit, edit both the pictures and put them side by side. So takeaway from this whole session is that start editing your pictures, start looking at light, how it enters your house, what is the time that it enters, do a little bit of editing, plan your image beforehand and invest in basic gear that will let you go hands-free. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking this workshop and being there right from the beginning.
So lovely to have you. Thank you very much for mentoring this session. My pleasure, my honor.